Hello and welcome to a beautifully still early evening here in equally beautiful Nova Scotia. Welcome to my channel, The Optimistic Gardener. My name is Steve Farley. Well, you've caught me just in the middle, or just finishing off actually, sowing a few drills of carrots. And it's a great little job to be doing on a lovely still evening like this. Empties my brain of all the sort of the cares and worries of my workday just gone, and I'm just thinking about the sowing of each little seed into the drill there. So these, like I said, these are my carrots. I've got 3 different rows of carrots here, and I was also thinking about the differences in direct sowing, which is what I'm doing, sowing the seeds directly into the ground that I'm going to be growing them in, and indirect sowing or indirect growing of seeds and plants, where I put them in a pot earlier, grow them on a little bit, normally under cover in a greenhouse or in the house under lights or something. And the differences and why we do it. Do we need to do it? And I thought I'd, for a few that may not have been tuned into my channel, or might be new into gardening, the differences between direct and indirect sowing and why we do that. Well, sometimes it's by necessity for direct sowing. Let's start with direct sowing, shall we? Sometimes it's by necessity. For instance, carrots, root crops. Most root crops you will sow directly into the ground. I say most, but earlier on in the season I've actually indirectly sown beetroot into little pots. As you can see, they've started to come up, and I'm multi-sowing them and growing them together, and I'll be planting them all out in little clumps together. And there's a video on that. I think that might be up on the screen. But most root crops really don't like being transferred from one place to another once you've sown them. So things like carrots, you would normally sow directly into the ground. So that's a reason for direct sowing. You've got to do it. And another reason is it's a lot less labour intensive. When you think about it, often a lot of people, I don't myself, but a lot of people have grow lights. So there's expense and labour. So the expense of buying grow lights and then using your electricity to sow them earlier on in the year, that's costing you money. You would normally sow them in some sort of seed, compost, etc. So that's going to cost you extra money, etc. So sowing them directly in the ground that you're going to grow them in is obviously rather cheap. So that is a good way. And the labour intensive bit, normally you'll just sow them in the ground and forget about them until they actually start to grow, to germinate, other than maybe covering them with a bit of fleece or maybe just watering them, something like that. You wouldn't really have to worry about anything else until they start growing. Another reason why you would direct sowing, or why direct sowing is a good idea, is plants or seeds sown, plants sown and grown directly will have a sort of a natural immunity and become more weather-wise, weather-beaten, etc. when they grow, because obviously they're growing straight up outside here, not cosseted by a greenhouse or inside. They've got winds buffeting them straight away, breezes, etc. That sort of bulks them up. It's like plant training, with a bit of water, a bit of rain bashing down them, a bit of wind knocking them out, gives them nice and sturdy, nice beefy plants afterwards. So that's a good thing for direct sown plants, rather than your plants, like I said, in the greenhouse, are all nicely cosseted. You make sure they're nice and warm at night, etc., covered, not worried about frost. So that's another good reason why we would plant directly. You get stronger, more sort of naturally used to the conditions plants when you sow them directly. Now let's have a think about why we are doing indirectly? Or, you know, what is the reason that we sow plants indirectly? Well, here in Nova Scotia, it is the end of April, and it's only really, I wouldn't even say it's actually warming up that much. I mean, it's 10 degrees now, but it's, what is it, 28th of April. I've had snow on the ground that deep here at this time of year. Even in May, that, you know, there's a chance, a lot less chance of us having snow, but, you know, there's always quite a chance of us having snow, and also quite sharp frosts we can have up into the first week in June. So sowing them indirectly means we can, so what I'm saying is, here we have quite a short growing season, and a lot of places around the world you have a quite quite short growing season, and September we can have frosts in September as well. So there's that short period. So it allows me to start plants off earlier in my greenhouse, in my house, or under lights if you've got lights, etc., to sort of get a bit of a head start on the growing season here. And so that when it does warm up, it gets quite hot here. So, you know, I can get the plants up, and they'll catch up that way as well. But it just gives me that chance, sowing them indirectly. Things like tomatoes that, you know, need a bit of warmth as well. That gives them a chance to get a head start early in the season. So that is a good reason for sowing your seeds indirectly. So another reason is when you sow your seeds outside, they have more of a chance of being eaten by rodents, you know, mice, etc. Are out here at night having a sniff around, eating all your sort of seeds. So there's more of an infant mortality rate for your seeds sown directly. Inside, you can protect them often. You know, you could put them in some sort of incubator type thing, a little greenhouse in your house. Obviously, you're going to have less chance of the mice getting at them. So there's a good reason. You're protecting them against rodents, etc., by sowing indirectly. You're giving them those better conditions indirectly. Like I said, you know, you've got like lots of different things like your greenhouse and protecting them, and that's obviously to do with that length of season. Another reason that you wouldn't, you know, automatically think about is it's a long winter, and here it's a long winter, like I said, till often into April, and mentally it gives me something to do. Even, you know, I can sow pepper seeds in late February, and then I can start that process of thinking about gardening, and that process of relaxing, because gardening helps me relax in my thinking after, like I said, a hard day's work. You know, I'm not the most high-flying person in the world, but my job is quite stressful sometimes. So it's really good to be able to, early in the season, get in the greenhouse or get in my house, a little potting shed, and start planting up seeds, etc. And just getting into that rhythm of the gardening season that sort of cheers you up. Why we, you know, often most of us do our gardening because it makes us happy, and it makes me happy earlier in the season. So that's a good reason that you wouldn't often think of sowing your seeds indirectly. Another good reason, the same as sort of the protecting your seeds from rodents, etc., is protecting your young plants from different pests, whether it be deer or slugs, pigeons, things like that. They often like the sort of succulent brand new shoots of young seedlings just come up, whereas if you've got them in the greenhouse for a little bit longer until they're, you know, more sturdy plants, they're less likely to be attacked by pests, etc. So that is a good reason why you want to save your plants by planting them indirectly, keeping them in the greenhouse, etc., under some sort of protection before they're ready to go out and they're a lot stronger plants. So there's a couple of different reasons anyway why I would either sow directly or sow indirectly. I'm, you know, a bit of a balance. I lean towards the indirect. You know, I will sow lots of things outside, but I'll also, oh, there's another one, an insurance policy. So you can sow things directly, but then also sow things earlier indirectly, and you've got a bit of an insurance policy then, haven't you? Because if your stuff fails on the outside, you know earlier whether your seeds are good and whether they're, you know, if they've grown up. There's a bit of an insurance policy. If your outside stuff gets destroyed by a storm or snow or something like that, your inside ones, you can still go out with them later on. So a bit of an insurance policy. So I think you've got the message there from me, or my sort of leanings. I like sowing stuff outside, it's a lot less hassle, but I also like the insurance and just the doing things bit of indirect planting. And obviously, because I've got a short season, things like tomatoes and peppers I need to start off inside. So the choice is yours, but whichever way it is, I hope you enjoy it, and it's always job's a good 'un.